This episode is sponsored by the HMD Rosetta EQ, the EQ plugin that translates traditional EQ into everyday language to speed up your workflow as well as making easier decisions. Use the code Ali right now for $10 off at helpmedevon.com. I'll leave a link in the description below. Now on to the episode. All right, we recording? I just want to make sure because sometimes you be trying to catch us slipping before we start the conversation. Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's your boy, Devvon Terrell. Welcome to the My Audio Nerds podcast, the podcast for audio nerds like yourself. Please make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. Also, make sure that you follow us on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify Podcasts. Now, before I introduced my guest that you are so annoyed with and you see every day, we have a very special guest today. And this guest has really been pioneering something completely different in our entire industry. Mm-hmm. I don't have to ring off this man's credits. You know who this man is ad nauseum. Ladies and gentlemen, clap it up one time for Mixed by Ali.
Come on, man, you're making me blush, my boy.
Yeah. Now, he doesn't like, I know he doesn't like to be like flattery. He doesn't like that. I know that. But, bro, I always have to give you your flowers. Like, I just straight up have to. So, without further ado, let me just introduce you guys because you guys are here with me as well.
You might as well.
It's your boy, Devvon Terrell. I'm a Pro Tools user to the left of me.
You got the Ableton Assassin. It's your boy, Courtney Taylor.
Okay, that was calm today. I like
Pretty
that.
calm,
I
right?
Think of some, I was trying to think of some off last minute.
You know.
Couldn't come up with none. It's Fruity Loops. You know, team is in the building.
Okay.
That's what's up,
LJ.
you rapping.
Okay. And Ali, what DAW you claiming today?
Man, I mean, I'm saying I'm Pro Tools, you know what I'm saying?
That's
Pro
right.
Tools all day, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Me and my boy, we 2-on-1 right now.
Thank you.
Okay.
You know what's funny on the
That's
show?
fair.
I never had anybody that's an affiliate like that's Pro Tools too. Like I never had not one person that's Pro Tools too. But
We never
the
had
fact-
an FL guy.
But look who I got as a.
I'm about to say,
as a weapon.
this is, for your first one, this is a huge layup.
Oh, yeah, it's
this
crazy.
is
I
a
ain't
huge
gonna lie,
layup.
they've
This
been
is a huge
double
layup.
teaming me for the last year.
Yeah.
And I have never brought help.
I'm not gonna lie, you Fruity Loops, you know, I've started on Fruity Loops. I started
come
tracking
on,
and recording and mixing the Fruity Loops.
You know,
wow.
we seen you comment one time on one of our
jokes,
things.
yeah.
Yeah. So this is great because this is a question I like to ask everybody. As far as you is concerned, as far as like how you started and how you got to like Pro Tools, what was your DAW journey? Like, where did you start in and how did you land
That's a
here?
great question.
Uh-huh.
So I started in Cool Edit Pro.
Right.
Wow. Old school Cool Edit Pro.
Yep.
That's when I was chopping up the ringtones and doing the whole everything. And then we upgraded to Sony Acid Pro. I had a new download link. And then from Sony Acid Pro, started recording and mixing the Fruity Loops and then took it to Pro Tools.
Wow.
Nice,
And that was
nice.
it. Got you.
Yeah, it was
That's
a nice little journey.
That's wild. Okay, cool. So you know, as far as everything is concerned, as far as you just being a mixer and stuff like that, I'll be honest with you, I've watched a ton of your content. Like when it came to a lot of the mix people that we heard about and knew about, like giving us game and just like letting us watch the process. Like you're one of those people that I put there because I remember your Twitch streams and stuff like that back in the day. How do you feel, and I wanted to know this, like, how do you feel about the artist being in the room with you? Because a lot of times I've seen the artist in the room with you when you were mixing and stuff like that. Like, how does that process work? Like, how is that?
It depends on the artist. You know, I'm all about vibes. Like, if if the artist himself is, you know, a good friend of mine or, you know, we have a relationship outside the studio, let's hang out. You know what I'm saying? Let's catch a vibe. Let's work on a record.
Right.
But, you know, at times I like to start the mixes, you know, where I can kind of just put my foot in it first. When I'm about, 80% through, then I have the artist come through, just so it's not that tapping on the shoulder.
Right.
You know, every 2 seconds, oh, that's not this, or let's try this or try that. I like to, spend a little time on the record just so I can kind of, put my foot in it first.
Right.
Yeah,
And that's it.
Because I heard like, even Nipsey specifically, because y'all did Victory Lap together.
Yeah.
He would only record at like certain times, or that was the first album he got professionally mixed.
Right.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Man, what a journey. Yeah, Victory Lap, man. We were at Paramount for about 3 months, locked in.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
And we literally was sleeping there, waking up Mike and Keys, 1500 in the booth, making beats. While we're in the control room, just working, mixing. Nip would probably taking meetings off to the side.
Yeah.
Right.
It was just a time. It was the first album that, Nip had really gotten mixed. Before that, it was just, him putting 2 tracks together and just putting stuff together.
Right.
So during that process, it was tons of just educating the process.
Yeah. Right.
Like, giving him the mix that's like, negative 8 dB or whatever, and it's like, why is this so low compared to this reference I've been living with, right? And just him understanding that from top to bottom.
Right.
But yeah, like that was different. Like I said, the energy of the whole just studio was. It was, like I said, I like to work with energy and people around me. Like, that was just a complete vibe.
Right. You seem like you handle that really well. Because you know how it is. Like, there's a lot of people that feel like, I don't want the artist nowhere near me. I want my process and stuff like that. But, I remember one time, I think one time I even seen you with Marky Basie in the studio.
Yeah.
It was wild. Like I was like, yo, it's Marky Basie. Like he just got Marky Basie just chilling, and he just chilling. And what's funny is you're doing the background vocals, and freaking Marky is just like, it's just he happy. Like he like, yeah, I would be too. You touch it. But you know, another thing, and the real reason why I'm really happy to have you here is because from a mix engineer standpoint. You know, I've recently onboarded onto your platform as far as the engineers platform is concerned. And I learned a lot just working with you guys, just behind the scenes when we was at NAM and stuff like that. Thank you for that, by the way. Just giving us an opportunity for that. Make some noise one time for that. I'm sorry. Like, all the content.
Deserve it, bro. The audio nerds, like this, like what
Thank
you guys are doing for the community is incredible.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have to support it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I'm thankful that you allow us to stand next to you in that regard, because it means a lot to our fanship as far as them like, oh, wait, like, for you to be sitting here, it just gives such a validity to what we do. You understand what I'm saying? So we really appreciate that. Like, trust me, they're in the comments going crazy. This is gonna go. You know how this is.
I'm a fan. I've been a fan. I'm glad I was able to connect.
Thank you, man. Oh, another thing about your platform as far as engineers concerned, I think it's obviously revolutionary. You know, we love it to death as far as getting your money and just having like the A/B system of when you send it to a client, for instance, and you just like, here's an A/B of your reference. Because a lot of time I'll send somebody a mix, be like, yo, do me a favor, play the reference first, then play my actual thing. So I feel like you guys have paid so much attention to detail, and I can tell someone with a mixed background made this. One thing that really impressed me was the fact that we have an onboarding call, right? So the onboarding call, basically, for everyone that doesn't know, is that's when they basically, you get selected, you move off the waiting list, and they bring you onto the platform, but you get an onboarding Zoom call for the platform. And apparently, it says Mixed by Ali is going to be there, blah, blah. So in my head, I'm like, he's not going to be there. It's going to be some video. My head is going to play some video, and that's just going to be it. And my man showed up. Scruffy was like, what's good, y'all? Like, my fault. Like, I know it's the morning. And I thought that was really fascinating, man. Like, as far as just actually seeing you a part of the platform. So, like, off camera, we was talking about it as far as you being a part of it. Like, why do you constantly do the onboarding calls and stuff like that? Like, why is that a part of your whole thing?
I mean, first and foremost, like, there's never been a platform built like engineers for the jump, right? So the reason why we even created an onboarding process is while we're tweaking things under the hood, right, we can get it right. Onboarding users, onboarding tons of engineers using the platform, get real-time usage, talk to them. I talk to users on a monthly basis, right, understanding what they like, what they don't like. So going through that process, right, month after month after month after month is how we are able to build the tools and utilities that we are currently offering, because it's coming from the community's mouth. You know, so the reason why we have the onboarding is because, like I mentioned, there's not a platform built like this with the comprehensive tools and the workflows and all these things that we provide. So I wanted to make sure we get it right. You know, if we would have just had an open platform for everybody to use, because it was so early on, we let go of the bare bones iteration last year when we launched. Bare bones iteration, right? To where we wanted the community to tell us what was the next thing for us to build on our product roadmap. Right? So, you know, we wanted to be strategic in a way where we don't achieve failure. You know, we wanted to make sure that we're talking to users as they're booking projects, as they're using it in real time. You know, so once we talk to this month's batch of engineers that's using it, we can iterate on the things they asked us to, right? Then when we onboard the next month of engineers with implementing all of the new features they wanted, then we can ask them how they like it and continue to move up the chain. You know, for the first time, there's a tech platform built by the people that's using it. You know what I'm saying? Rather than somebody in Silicon Valley that's trying to create a solution for an industry they never stepped foot in. You know, and that's why we're getting this fucking mass adoption the way we are right now, is right? Because for the first time, we have something to stand on. You know?
For sure. It's becoming that. And to let everybody know, a lot of people think to themselves that the engineers they see on the TZO Bay, they think those people aren't actually there. But even when I spoke to the TZO, they're like, no, we're on the platform. Like the actual, you guys are actually on the platform. So I just want to make that clear too. A lot of people don't think like y'all are actually there and like available. Y'all are available. So let's have some fun. So I want to slide on over to our FL studio correspondent, and I want you to tell us what you got for us today.
All right, so we're gonna do one gotta goes. So I'm gonna give you a bunch of one gotta goes. You just gotta pick one or the other.
Waves.
All right, let's start it off. Voice of God versus Tape Head.
Ooh, damn. You niggas cold. Put me back against the wall. Huh? Honestly, I would say Tape Head. I've been receiving a lot of sessions. Well, damn. Nah, I like the low end the voice that God gives. Yeah, I love the low end the voice that God gives.
Okay,
so
voice of God gotta stay.
Voice of God gotta stay. Yeah.
Voice of God gotta
just
stay.
throwing that shit, just throwing it on something gives it the low end without even having to tweak it. Right. Like that plugin is just like it's the voice of God.
Right, it is.
Yeah.
Big studios versus intimate, smaller studios.
Honestly, I prefer more intimate studios. I like to fit in the room like a glove.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like I get to hear imperfections in a certain type of way.
Right.
But the big rooms for the vibes, you know what I'm saying? For those sessions.
Right.
It depends on what I'm working on. You know, if it's sessions that, require just me spreading it on the board and I need those full 80 channels.
Right.
Then I don't mind it. But, if it's more, just getting ideas, tracking or just quick ideas and things like that, then,
Right.
Yeah. But I'm a chameleon, bro. I can put some headphones on my laptop and get to work.
That's a fact. We know your early beginnings, so I know. Trust me, bro. I'm like, I know it's like your sister fam.
The big rooms is luxury, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was doing it with, the cracked plugins and broken them bucks.
Yep. And a broken mic. We
Yeah,
know.
what?
We know.
Come
2A versus 76.
on. I like the 2A. On what?
Vocals.
2A. I'll take the 2A.
2A. So you like to use 76 on instruments?
I mean, it depends on what it is. It could be an instrument that be light or dark. You know, it depends on the texture, the tone of that instrument. You know? But I like the 2A on vocals is because it gives me this compression where it just for vocals that it feels me, it puts in pocket for me a lot more.
Gotcha.
You know? So a lot of vocals that a lot of sessions that I've been working on just recently need a lot of taming, and I've been able to really achieve with the 2A a lot more.
Got you. Question for you: What's a plugin that you've added recently to your arsenal that you've been messing with? Because I see you talking about newer stuff.
Yeah,
What's something
honestly,
newer?
I've been getting tons of sessions with the God particle on it.
Come on.
On it. Like already,
Interesting.
you know what I'm saying? Already coming in. I mean, engineers are just using it crazy right now. And,
Right.
Obviously I love doing mixes with nothing on the master, right? Nothing on the mix bus. I like doing the mix dry.
Right.
And then I'll throw whatever was on the the mix bus. I'll basically bring it back in just to see what the translation is between my mix and where they had it.
Right.
But the God particle, I've been getting some nice glue. Like it's been giving.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. So my question to you is, when you say you've been getting sessions with the guard particle, when people send you these sessions, are they sending you it with that literally that plug-in on? Is it printed?
No, that's on it.
It's on it.
Yeah, I get the actual recording session. That's the ones I really request because I try. Nowadays, a lot of artists really want close to the reference as possible, right?
Yeah, that's
right.
So it's I request those recording sessions that they last bounce the reference from.
Right.
And then I kind of tweak it backwards from there.
Got you. So my question is, say for instance you have a recorded session, right? So you have the whole Pro 2 session, and you're looking at the recording chain. Obviously, recording chain has some plugins on it.
Right.
How do you go about that? Are you? I'm sure you're not taking plugins off. How are you tweaking?
I am actually. I'm
Nice,
bypassing everything on the vocal chain.
Gotcha.
I'll bypass it and I'll bring it back one-on-one. I want to know what it's doing, right? Because sometimes, some engineers might be, doing too much or too less of something, right? So I like to understand what each, plugin and chain is doing, and then just so I can kind of get the full context. And then from there, again, go back and retweak it. I've been doing a lot of just pulling back more, my motto nowadays is less is more. When I get a lot of these sessions, a lot of people are just completely just pushing these plugins
to the max,
right?
right.
So I would majority of the time pull it back a little bit, and I'll do some more game staging on the board.
Got you.
I still do a hybrid of in the box compared to something in the board.
Got you. And the funny thing is, I've been seeing even some conversations that you've been having as far as you mix in the box for the most part now, if I'm not mistaken.
Majority, it depends on the session, right? You know what I'm saying? But majority of the time, instead of me spreading a whole mix, I'll just sum it, where I'll have, a stereo kick and drum, stereo bass, stereo vocal, music.
Right.
So I'll do a blend of the both.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing a lot of engineers adopt this with the boards, because you come from, I don't want to say come from that, but you are very familiar with the SSL consoles and stuff like that. You work on those. So I'm seeing a lot of engineers mix a lot in the box, but still use the board for summing, which I'm finding I'm seeing everyone starting to do that from a workflow standpoint because I feel like everybody was like, yo, I just like to be able to recall my sessions. You can work on more sessions that way and stuff like that. So when it comes to summing, as far as the board, what is the sound of summing that you like as far as what it's not giving you in that DAW from a digital standpoint?
Personally, it's just that clarity, that depth. Obviously, when you mix in the box, you're dealing with digital distortion and all these things, right? From just mixing analog and just having a hybrid, setup since 2013 now.
Right.
I don't feel like I can achieve that type of depth or clarity or space in a mix without it. You know what I'm saying? I just love, you know, being able to really achieve that, you know.
Right.
And on the board, you're able to push it a lot further. You know, especially I got a G+, one of the last ones ever in production.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, this is one of the techniques that I really learned from Dre is, you know, being able to clip the track in a good way to where it's giving you like that dynamic that you really can't achieve in the box, you know?
Right. And Dre used that G+ too, if I'm not mistaken. The 4000 to G+. Okay.
It was one of the last ones ever in production. We got it from Interscope. It was Dre's back in the day. Same
Gotcha.
board.
Nice.
We did Good Kid to Paper Butterfly Damn.
Wow.
On this console. Before that, Dre done tons of albums.
Right. Is that at your new studio, by the way,
at
that
No
you
Name.
got?
Yeah,
No Name.
Yeah,
Got
we,
you.
we took over, obviously, if you don't know, Can-Am, the old Death Row.
Oh wow, that's the
Wow.
old spot. That's crazy. Okay, gotcha. How did you get?
Yeah, how did that happen?
Yeah.
It's a funny story. Shout out to Matt, because if he's seen this, he would be upset that I didn't bring his name.
I
Shout out to my boy, Money Making Matt. Nah, but it was a Dreamville studio for about a year or two.
Okay.
You know, I'm super close to the whole Dreamville family. And I think they were just letting it go or whatever. And Matt was like, "Yo, you should come check this spot out."
Right.
And at this time, I'm not knowing it's Can-Am, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
when you say Can-Am, people it just rings bells. It's legendary
Right.
studio.
Right.
Before Death Row, like legendary rock and roll. I'm talking about like the Guns N' Roses,
Right.
Stevie Nicks, you know, Green Day, like, you know, crazy shit. And he's like, "Yo, I'm getting rid of the studio. I'm like, "All right, bet. I'm gonna come check it out." And in my mind, I'm like, I'm mixing heavy. Like, we just early in development of the platform. Like, I'm like, I don't got time for this shit.
Right.
So I pulled up. I went to go check it out. I'm looking at the bones. Like, the whole facility is just like, it just feels like the 80s, like 80s and 90s.
Right.
Blue carpet stains left and right, just wood trim. So already walking in, I'm just throwing off. I'm like, I'm just here supporting the homie at this point. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, and then we walking through, I see the end, and we go all the way through to the rooms. You know, I see the back room, the official room where Pac did All Eyes on Me. And,
Right.
And, you know, I'm like, yeah, this is cool, you know, whatever.
Right.
And then he was like, yeah, man, so Pac did this. And I'm like, wait, what? He's like, oh, this the old Death Row, the Can-Am. I'm like, nigga, why didn't you start with that?
Right,
Like, you know what I'm
facts.
saying? I would have took it if you would have just called me and
Like,
texted
that
me
would've been
with
the
it,
hook right
You would
there.
have
Exactly.
didn't need to come.
Right.
But yeah, man, energy brought me there. You know what I'm saying?
Wow,
what's up.
that's
Wow.
wild.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And I know that you guys, if I'm not mistaken, I've heard rumblings you guys starting a label in the whole nine. Is that true?
Yeah.
Because I seen Noise was talking about it last time I was talking to him and stuff like
shout
that.
out Noise,
Yeah.
No Name Recordings. So we converted Can-Am Studios into No Name Studios. Myself, my business partner Dan Maynard, and then from that, you know how we even started the label, right? It's kind of crazy. I don't think I ever told the story. You know, it was peak COVID. You know, and again, we're early on building this platform.
Right.
And, you know, I'm getting ready to, like, launch the V1, right, of engineers, just like the bare bones iteration.
Right.
And I'm like, you know, I want to bring some awareness to it. Like, how can I create some type of, like, awareness of the platform to get some early usage, right?
Right.
So I hopped on Twitch, and I was doing, like, a lot of, like, the live mixes on Twitch.
Right.
And I was doing, like, little things like that. And we started this this Mix by Ali competition, right? Where,
Right.
You know, I'm looking for artists to, like, select, and I want to mix their song live on Twitch. And,
Right.
you know, so we ran that for a couple months, basically, just where artists would submit their songs via email. I would listen to them, you know, live on Twitch with, you know, people viewing as I'm playing, like, Call of Duty or just, you know, fucking around.
Right.
And, you know, we had, you know, the people in the comments kind of voting on the records that they liked the most, right?
Right.
And we ran this month after month after month. And, you know, it was an artist named Malik Moses.
Right.
You know, that, you know, was submitted songs. And week after week, genuinely, like, no bullshit, you know, he was winning off the strength of just having music that stood out.
Right.
You know, and the fourth week comes, and we're like, yo, like, you know, we asked him offline to send some more music or whatever. And
Right.
we flew him to LA. You know,
Right.
and we wanted to kind of test the waters. You know, I've never worked with art outside of, like, you know, the Kendricks of the world. Like, I've never, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So we came out and we just bonded like just brothers. And, you know, from there we just like, yo, let's do something. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it could be. But,
Right.
you know,
But let's work.
let's figure it out. But that's, you know, through, like, community building initiatives with engineers, we were able to start now No Name Recordings.
Right.
He's
And
one of the
that's
first artists that we signed.
That's hard. Wow.
So, circling back on Dre, on the One Gotta Goes, I had The Chronic versus O1. Whether you want to do mix or just your favorite.
You're asking me which one I like to mix or the favorite or combine?
Combine.
Damn.
So overall?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, they both had this thing. Like, the original Chronic had that funk, like, real funk reference. George Clinton, Parliaments, Warm Sense everywhere. Like, you know, like, but the Chronic just slapped. Slap. I would say 2001, because that album really shaped my childhood. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
you know, just, you know, growing up in Gardena and just being from LA.
Right.
You know, those are the albums. You know, that album definitely listened to it, and it was like, this is, you know, the soundtrack of LA. Like this is, you know, you're able to paint that picture by listening to these songs. You know?
Right.
And you know, as I'm, you know, embarking on my early music journey, these are the references that I wanted to live to sound like, right?
Right,
You know?
right.
So definitely the Chronic, yeah.
The Chronic, there you go.
01.
He was fiending to ask that one.
And the last joint.
And that's to the day a reference though. Well, like who doesn't reference the Chronic? That shit slaps.
That's true, actually,
You kidding me?
Last joint. RMX Reverb versus Valhalla.
The real RMS.
Yeah.
The real one, yeah. So that was actually one of the first reverbs I ever started using, like a real analog version of. I was at the studio in LA, Encore. It's like where we mixed like all the early J-Rock records and stuff.
Right.
They had one there.
Right.
And using that in real time was, you know,
Was a
fun.
game changer. It was fun to use it and stuff like that.
Outboard gear is always going to be the way because it's like you are the mouse. Like you're literally in the room playing.
Something about it.
It's just, you know, it's your hands on. Like you're not, you know, for some reason when I'm mixing the box, I'm always counting. I'm looking at the red. I'm looking at the meters. Like I'm always just tracking
It's like number
what I'm
based.
doing, right?
Yeah.
You know, I'd rather mix off of feeling. You know.
Got you. You know, speaking of your younger days and stuff like that, I'm aware that you were the guy in the street selling the ringtones.
Yeah, I had them, but $20 holler ringtones. What you need?
So I want to know, and I
Holler
want to
ringtones.
understand, how the hell did you figure that out? Like, how did you figure out like how to be the ringtone guy? Because everybody knew one. I knew one too. But like, how was you doing that? Like, how did you establish that business? That ass. Like, I was really like interested in that. I was like, how did you figure that out?
I'm a hustler, boy. Nah, the ringtone. I mean, at that time you had a chirp phone. You was up. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
facts,
And it's
yeah.
I had the light up antennas, the battery packs. Like,
Oh, you was
that guy.
I
I
was
know
a
he
cell phone
was.
guy. Like, you know what I'm saying? We would find them. They were just so happen to land off the back of a truck. I don't know how. But you know, ended up being the phone guy. But the ringtones, it was. I just always been computer literate. You know what I'm saying? I've you know, I've just always just loved computer games. I just, you know, those things. You know, it just always intrigued me.
Right.
And I just found a program that, you know, was able to hack the phones and, you know, put real voice ringtones on them rather than just those beeping ringtones.
Right, the polyphonic ones.
Yeah,
Trust me, people was laughing at my ass
Are
the
you
other
kidding
day. I
me,
was
dog?
explaining it to them. It was like polyphonic. I was like,
everybody had Fur Elise as like the main ringtone. That was like, that was
crazy.
the main one.
Yeah.
But then I pulled up, you know what I'm saying? I got the homies just recording like parody ringtones, you know.
Got you.
Clowning whoever's calling.
Right,
You know,
right.
like talking about moms, just call and pick up. Whatever the case was, right?
Right.
Just, you know, and yeah, that actually was just the start of my journey in recording, right? Just being able to have people come over with headphone mics and you know, record these jokes, and it turned into, hey, I gotta do a song. You think you can record a full song for me?
Right.
And that was like the spark.
Right. And from that spark, basically, as far as your tech background, because I feel like a lot of people that get into mix engineering, we're like really computer savvy. Like for me too, like I went to school for computer engineering and just one day decided I was like, this ain't it. I was like, I don't want to sit behind
That's
a desk.
incredible.
Something like, I just was like, I'm done. And I went over to full set, and that's when I changed.
Nice.
But like, as far as your journey, I just know that was a really a big part of your journey, and like how you got to like meeting Kendrick and all that stuff. Like, how did that whole relationship develop with y'all as far as everything is concerned? As far as working in the studio, like your audio side, as far as like, okay, I'm really recording now.
Right.
Like, what was that?
I mean, it started from the plugins. I mean, from the ringtones.
Right.
Like literally in my grandma's house, I lived across the street from my high school. So like after football practice, you know, homies would come over.
Right.
In my closet, I had, you know what I'm saying, the bed sheets up in the closet. You know what I'm saying? I had the headphone mic on the edge.
Right.
And you know, I think I had an M Audio Solo interface, the AKG headphones.
Oh my God.
And I laughed at the Audio Technica because that was the exact mic that I had.
1820. The Prius.
The Prius.
Yeah,
That's OD.
we was in there.
Yeah.
But that was my exact setup. And that's when I was recording in Cool Edit. And as like it started intriguing me because I had I still do severe ADHD, right? So like that was the one thing that like really can like calm me down and like sit
Focus
in the room.
you.
You know what I'm saying? Mad focus.
Yeah.
So from that I just like started learning, just looking up, you know, what was I doing, right? Audio engineering, right?
Right.
Finding whatever I could find on LimeWire, like I'll download it. The next one was cool, you know, Sony Acid Pro.
Right.
Learned that when I was like a more professional dog for recording at the time, way more. And just continue to be like a student, bro. Like I was on the blogs, on the forums, learning the shit. And,
So I've heard that you was like on Gear Space and all that other stuff, like
it was
doing
Gear
all that stuff.
Sluts.
I know.
Yeah.
I remember Gear
They got woke.
Yeah.
They got woke. They
I
said-
can't say that anymore.
I don't think me and Gear Space, you know, I don't think I would have found that one.
Yeah, no, me either. Gear Sluts. I used to be like, what is this site? There was a
going
bunch of
on here?
nerds like just chopping it
It was
up.
cool though. It was a dope. And that was like the first inkling for community that I got.
It was.
You know what I'm saying? Because like I'm in the forums, bro. Like, you know, looking at DIY studios where people can post how they built their
Right,
bass
right.
traps and things like that.
Right.
there's a section where you can upload your mixes for people to review.
Right.
It was just good conversation. And it was like at this time, like I'm still like coming in from out the street, so it's like none of my homies was on this.
None.
You know what I'm saying? So like nobody was like trying to talk about how they connected the speakers to like what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a thing.
But on Gear Space and Gear Sluts, they was doing that
They was
all
doing it.
day.
It was,
They were talking another language. Like,
right. So that furthermore, I always like complicated shit. You know what I'm saying? Things that I don't understand. I like to be challenged. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And me falling in love with audio engineering, like that was something that was now challenging me because like couldn't afford the music schools. I didn't know anybody in my circle that was a fucking musician at the time.
Right.
So that just something I don't know. I'm gonna do whatever I can to learn it.
Right.
I soaked it all up.
And I'm aware that you guys recorded Kendrick and all of that other stuff just with the AT 2020. Shout out to the AT 2020.
Nah, actually, during this time it was Tiger. So
gotcha.
Yeah, it was Tiger. It was a funny story. If you look up Tiger's Young on Probation mixtape from like 03, you'll see Mixed by Lee on the cover.
Oh wow, that's funny, man. That's
so
crazy.
That was actually that one that we was doing all the early stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And you was recording that AT 2020, that same
Yeah,
mic?
that's the one. That's the one.
Wow.
That setup, that same setup, the AT20, the AKG headphones, the M Audio Solo.
Man, if I listen to that whole album, that mix slap, bro, you the one, bro. I ain't gonna lie. I'm like, yo, fam, look at this setup. That's dope. And then, just going, I really enjoy your journey, so I'm just kind of walking down the road.
Of course.
And within that journey, obviously, the people that you were surrounded by obviously catching traction, and they start to have a buzz around the city and stuff like that. And I understand that Dre took an interest in Kendrick, and that's kind of where your I don't want to say understudy, but that's kind of where your mentorship from Dre kind of came from and stuff. What was that like for you? You know what I mean? Just coming from the guy with the ringtones to the AT 2020 to kind of like, yo, we in here with Dre and just kind of working and stuff. Like, what was that like for you? Like that whole like introduction. Like, what was that first day like?
100%. I mean, it was from the AT 2020 to like the Dre, it was like a whole like 7 year. Probably say 5 or 6 year gap from like doing all of the early Kendrick, the early J-Rock, Absol, like really doing a lot of the TD stuff.
Right.
But getting once Kendrick signed to Dre, because we really developed the sound together. If you go back and listen to like the Section 80s of the world, like there was nothing out during that time that sounded similar, right?
Right.
So, getting with Dre, it was like, Dot was like, yo, like, let's, I want Ali to be in there with you because, saying we have a sound that we want to cater to.
Right.
And it was intimidating as fuck.
I bet.
Like, are you kidding me? Like,
that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Like, man, Dre could have been doing anything. I'm not going to say nothing. Like, what?
Shit,
like,
right? Good one, bro.
You're killing it, you know what I'm saying? But like just the way Dre opened up, with open arms, it was inspiring, you know what I'm saying? It's like it's somebody at the statue, you know what I'm saying? Just at least attempting to listen to, you know what I'm saying, the sounds that we're creating, the way we're putting these together.
Right.
It was humbling. It was very,
got
very
you.
humbling.
What would you say is the biggest thing you probably learned from that? You itching? I got you.
Because
Because
I felt like you was gonna ask exactly.
No, you ask it there. I got it. Go ahead. You ask him there.
Answer that first.
Okay.
I like that, yeah.
I was gonna say, what would probably be one of the biggest things that, as far as an aha moment, like within just working with him, like obviously it's day in, day out, y'all kind of working and stuff like that. What was something that you was like, oh shit, like that really caught you, like, oh, that's dope. Like I didn't, like that's a way to do that. Like what was one?
The board, right? You know what I'm saying? That, like working on the console, like it wasn't until really connected with Dre when the console was anything in my life, right?
Right.
So it was just being able to, clip the board, like I speak of that technique of being able to push that board and push that G series.
Right.
The way where, you're getting positive, distortion, if that makes sense.
Right.
It was learning that, because again, I'm a kid with no formal training trying to follow a book that I've never read.
Yeah. Right.
So it's, I'm sitting here making sure nothing's going over zero, like, and then when I'm seeing him, going crazy, and then, learning, the sweeping style of EQing the way, I was taught, it was, it was incredible. It shaped, my whole career, my sound, like the way I look at mixing, the way I approach mixing.
Right.
But
And when you say, for instance, when you talk about, because you talk about this a lot as far as that clipping that board, a lot of people do that, especially that G.
Yeah.
How are you going about that process? Are you literally just going to the fader and just hitting it, like just turning it up?
It depends on how on the input coming out of Pro Tools going in, right? So you might have something coming hot out of Pro Tools going in, and how I would convert, because obviously coming out of Pro Tools into the board, that's when you start getting that analog or that digital distortion.
Right.
So, but sometimes, I might get a track where, I might lose a lot of the energy or the presence because I pulled it back in the box to not get that, right?
Yeah.
So,
Right.
what we would do was I was taught to bring that down, right, to make sure you get more hair in the box, clip it, just literally clip it in the board.
Yeah.
If I have to, I'll use a line trim up there to, to get the volume down, but it'll still clip.
Got you. That's what I was wondering if y'all were hitting it with the line. Like, are you clipping it from the input, like stage?
I'm clipping it from the actual. No, I'm turning it down. So once I clip it on the board from the faders, then I'll go to the line and turn it down from there.
Gotcha. Okay. Then you bring it back in. Then you can bring it back into the box, and that's it.
So
Wow.
I was, doing that. Specifically on like drums and on hats and percussions and things like that. Right. If you go back and listen to Chronic, how the kicks and snares, hit on top of you are the kicks and hi hats, right, to get that peak.
Right.
So that's one thing where I was like, yo, like there are no rules in this shit.
Right.
Yeah.
That's like honestly, that was a real pivotal moment in me thinking about, I need to stop thinking about this.
Right. Right. And I peeped that from Neil. When we literally just posted that clip today, like about Neil.
Right.
Yeah.
Same concept. Right.
Right.
It's like just this feeling, right? It's music, right?
Right.
I feel like when you put in a box with thinking about the rules, right, you just really creating a ceiling for yourself that doesn't really exist.
Right.
And me learning that early. It definitely was a pivotal moment for my career.
Got you. So that was it. What was you itching for, brother, man?
He kind of touched on it, but I do want to know. Just going back on your time at TDE, and you're working with SZA, and you're working with Kendrick, and you're working with all these different genres with the alt R&B, which is when Control came out was something we never heard. It kind of changed music, and To Pimp a Butterfly, jazz. You're working with a lot of funk and stuff like that. So how was that, just working with different genres?
It was always a new journey for me. Because again, I'm coming off of not knowing shit. You know what I'm saying? So coming off of Good Kid to then jumping into To Pimp a Butterfly, right? Two different worlds. I'm tracking like full bands, right? I'm mixing upright basses. Like I'm working with instruments I've never heard of before. You know what I'm saying? Just again, because not coming from no musical background.
Right.
But the transition, it taught me so much. Right. It taught me patience more than anything.
Right.
During the time of mixing To Pimp a Butterfly, I did a lot of studying. Because it's good to understand. Like it's good to know what you don't know. Right. And I wanted to make sure. Yes, I wanted to bring a flavor of what I'm doing when it comes to mixing into this album. But I still want to cater to the original way these instruments and how things were supposed to be laid out. Right. Did a lot of studying. Went back and listened to the Mo Better Blues soundtrack. Went back and listened to Abbey Road, tons of Abbey Road, right?
Right.
And the Parliaments, George Clinton. Went back and listened just to how they're laying out the textures. Right. Right. How they're panning. A hat or a snare. 25% rather than just understanding. The landscape. So I can kind of apply that to my workflow with this new album.
Right. And I peeped that when you did mention that, and you was talking about which is something I really wanted to touch on as far as like, do mix engineers have the ability to mix other genres? Because and that's the reason why I wanted to bring it to you, was because knowing you did To Pimp a Butterfly, for instance, and I've seen you talk about that where you said I had to study. Like I had to figure out, okay, I'm recording the upright bass, and I appreciate your honesty on that, because a lot of people will just be like, yeah, I got it. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, bro, you don't know, like, you don't know the landscape. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes if I get a record and I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit out of my wheelhouse. Like, let's say if I get something that feels a little more rockish, right? Then I have to go study. So what I say to you is, and you kind of touched on it already, but how did you go about studying? Like when you got the idea, when they said, okay, this is what we're doing, like, how did you go about studying? Did you just immediately just start going to records in the genre? Like, and what were you looking for in those records? I heard you say textures, I heard you say a bunch of things, but what were you looking for in those records?
Just how the instrument, how the instrument's laid out, right? Textures, like, you go back and listen to old Funkadelics, right? How, the hats and the hi-hats and the snares are the driving records, or the driving instruments, right? Just understanding and really reaffirming a lot. It's it's reaffirmation of, yes, it's okay to pan the snare 100 to the left. Right. Yes, it's okay for, the kick or the drive, for whatever the case for it. There was just, it just reaffirmed that, music is all feeling, Right. And, during those times going back, doing those studying. And it was, again, I'm not mixing live instruments. I'm coming off of Good Kid, Mad City. The first rap before that was mixing 2-track beats.
Right.
So again, even just mixing understanding how to blend a live fucking bass with a programmed drum.
Right.
You know, I want to go and feel what that felt like when they were doing, you know, instruments where it was all live or sounds where they're all loud instruments.
Right.
So it was again, it was just understanding. Like I was doing my history. You know,
Right.
if that makes sense,
And just
you know?
studying the entire thing and stuff
And
like
the cool
that.
part is like after all of that, I'm like, well, shit, I'm already doing majority of the things that I'm learning. Right. It's just again the concept of no rules. Right. You know?
Right. Right.
So.
That's wild. Like I was thinking about that a lot, and I was like just trying to understand like your thought process, because I know for some people, right, like I've made this mistake a long time ago where it's like, for instance, Afro beats. I learned this the hard way. I remember mixing an Afro beat years ago, like before it became like a thing. Had these African guys come into the studio and they had Afro beats thing. I never knew what Afro beats was, and I mixed it like a hip hop record. And they quickly told me wrong. They was like, "This is not how it sounds." I was like, "Fam, this slaps." Like I was like, "What are y'all talking about?" But I learned that lesson.
There's
that
different
way.
driving points, you know.
Right.
And it's funny because I asked this question similar to Dro.
Okay, yeah.
Not this year, last year.
I was there, yeah.
Dro, you know, Dro mixes all the Wiz Kids. And you know, he's from South America, so like just in his bloodline, like just, you know, percussion and percussionists and just like focusing on those instruments.
Right.
Were heavily. But it's like, yeah, you know, when you're working on different, you have to understand what are the driving points of a record, right? As a mixing engineer, that's the main goal. Yes, you can make something slap and you can just push the low end, but you know, that's not always, you know, what the focus is.
Right.
Times where the vocals are the focus. You know, you want the drums and everything else to play the back. You know, and another time I learned this, I was working with Foster the People. There was an album that they did, the Secret Hearts Club, which I did completely just, shout out to Mark Foster, incredible. Mark, shout out to you, my boy. But, you know, that's when, like, obviously they booked me because of the work that I did, but then I had to like confine to what their rules were in that genre.
Right.
You know, and you know, I've done multiple passes on the records that I was mixing just to pull back all of the things that I thought I was killing, like the low end and the drums and, you know, things like that, because, you know, it was mostly instruments and vocals that they wanted.
Right. As opposed to us, you know, I'll niche to that kick. You know, like,
wanted to slap.
I wanted to slap.
I want to hear nothing.
Bad habit.
Yeah, actually, I would say my favorite mix from you is on We Cry Together, because it's not a record to me. You know what I mean? It feels like cinema, or auditory cinema. So, and just I would love to hear about that, because when listening to the record, it's a room, bro.
Yeah.
It's a couple arguing. You hear the keys, you hear the drink with the ice in it.
Wild.
It's insane. The footsteps.
No, that's all Kendrick. Like that. Like the last album was one of the only album that I was the least involved with. I mixed about 8 records on the album originally, because Manny did the other records.
Gotcha.
And how Dot works and how Dot puts the album together, it's all about flow and sequence.
Yeah.
So, you know, my mixes might have clashed with Manny's mixes, right? In a way where they weren't transitioning in a way where, you know what I'm saying? So that's how things dwindle down to the one record. You know, but that's like he's been like that, right? Being able to curate scenes within a song.
Right.
You know, like that's, if you go back and, you know, listen to like a lot of the older joints, just, you know, he has his ability to paint these pictures that, you know, I've never been able to see before with any other musician.
Yeah, like Zulu Love, Complexion on To Pimp Butterfly, like just the blend of those 2 records. That's my favorite record on that joint. And it's just because it feels like, I figured out how to make it so seamless.
I mean, it's creating scenes, man. This is one time, you know, it's, again, creating music that people and everybody can relate to, right? And, you know, it's just the way he does it is different, because it's, you know, I don't know how one person can really put that amount of thought and detail into something and to see it come together and have the pieces, you know, the engineers, the producers, the whoever putting the pieces together to achieve these goals. Right. It's a different type of art, you know.
I see. If I'm not mistaken, I think you guys. If I said his name wrong, please forgive me. If y'all use Mike Bosey a lot.
We use Mike Bosey for a lot of like all the stuff that I did with Kendrick.
Right, like a lot of the mastering stuff. I see y'all have like a really tight relationship, because I see him mastering everything Kendrick-wise and stuff like that. When you guys are creating these projects and stuff like that, because like he said, like those projects just have like, as soon as it comes on, it's like a certain sound and a certain texture is gonna stay in my ear for the whole time. Then when I put on another song, it's like we're out of that world. So it's like, as far as like creating that cohesiveness, right? How are you guys going about creating that cohesiveness? That's why I brought Mike in, because I know mastering-wise, he has to also play a part in that.
100%.
Yeah, so how are you guys creating that cohesiveness?
I mean, it's transitions, obviously when you put an album together, when you go back to like any of the Good Kids, the Pimp Butterflies, Damn, even Mr. Morale, right? You know what I'm saying? Everything, it's creating, they're like Legos, right? Putting the blocks together and then filling in the spaces.
Right.
But it's then also just understanding just direction of an album, right? There's a lot of emotion that you're taking a listener on when it comes for the ups and the downs, right?
Of course.
Right.
Sequence of an album is really, is really important. Like, I don't think a lot of people is, a lot of artists nowadays are just putting songs together and just dropping it, right?
Just giving out a playlist.
You know what I'm saying? Like that, when you sequence an album and really have intention behind, the cadence and the flow of an album, right? That's, how really, you're really able to tell a story.
Right.
And that's always been the jump. If you go back and listen to, the Kendrick Lamar OD, or EP, I'm sorry, go back to EP, right? Everything was always been about, having, being able to tell a story, right, in a sense.
Right. And when it comes to you guys creating that type of like setting, so you guys are have all the songs, you're mixing, and now you're creating those transitions. Are you guys bringing, like, say for instance, all the songs into a Pro Tools session, and then kind of like, okay, we have all the songs laid out in the Pro Tools session. Now we're starting to create the transitions. Are you guys doing it that way?
Yeah, 100%. Drop it in a session, track after track after track lined up. You know what I'm saying? In that sequence session, there'll be other tracks where you either add production or more vocals. It's funny, we were doing this at mastering for Damn, right? It was one of the records we were at mastering. And I'm actually on the background vocals. Like, we were in there just in the back, just cutting over the master tracks, right?
Right.
Wow. So it's like those sessions, again, production, vocals, sequencing.
Right.
It's canvas, right? You just continue to paint.
Right.
And then from there also is a trick that we did was we took the two track, like the bounce of the 2-track instrumental, and then we put the bounce of the 2-track vocals. Just to give a little bit more separation over vocal over music.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I do that to this day. In all my mixes. When I sequence, when the mixes are done, everything's approved. Right. And we put the album together. I'm always dropping the bounce 2-track stem. With the 2-track vocal. Right. And it gives you just that. It just sits the vocals just that much more on top.
Yeah. Wow. So you're separating. So let me understand what you're doing. So you're basically doing a print of the instruments, everything, and then you're doing a separate print of the vocals by itself, and then what?
In the sequence, I'll drop in that print of the instrumental and the print of the overall 2-track vocal, and then I'll do that for every song. That way, also, I can EQ if some vocals might be a little too sharp, a little too bright compared to the record coming in and out of another song, right? You have a little bit more control over the process.
Wow. Right. Let me tell you why that's so great, because. Say, for instance, when I'm mastering my project, which I know I shouldn't be doing, when I'm mastering my own project, right? Obviously, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create that cohesiveness, and even from a low end stamp, let's say the low end, for instance, I'm like, oh, like the low end is just way different, and it just kind of goes away compared to the other one. So what sometimes you'll make the mistake of doing is trying to get this one louder, killing the dynamics of that because you're trying to compensate for that. But you saying. I'm not gonna lie, that's a life-changing thing you just gave me. Because now that I'm thinking like, oh, just have the 2-track vocal and the instrumental, I can have more flexibility over just kind of like,
if you want more low end on the instrumental, you can just add more low end to the instrumental, and then you know.
And I don't mess with my vocal at all. And sometimes I just be wanting to turn up sometimes I just need to turn up the vocals just a little bit on that particular master, as opposed to saying I need to turn up the overall value. Bro, you have no idea. I'm so mad. I submitted my album.
I would do vocal rides, like, again, it's all about the overall project, right? Every song is a chapter in a book.
Right.
So you want to make sure when you flip that page, right? You're still moving on with the story.
Right.
Again, vocal rides. The sequence session at times can look like,
nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can look wild. Like I'm sure it could look crazy. Like tracks on tracks on tracks. 100%. Yeah, that was I'm not gonna lie. If there was one thing you came for today, bro, I'm so mad. I submitted my album already. I'm like, oh, that's how I could do it.
Incredible.
But I like that you guys work with Mike. He seems to really, really get it.
Yeah,
As far as everything, I feel like seeing you work on records was so important for me as an engineer, like just from your Twitch streams and stuff like that. And you put us onto a lot of plugins, especially that Voice of God. I feel like they should be. I feel like they should just have your face on it at this point. How did you find that plugin? How did you stumble on that plugin like that one?
I mean, from the jump, bro. Like my whole thing, like I would sit in the studio and I would put every plugin everything that I had in my toolbox, and I would throw it on a vocal, and then throw it on a snare, throw it on a bass. Like I would literally go down hundreds of plugins and just try shit.
Right.
There's just so many. Right. And that's how I really find, like, that's when I really just build a Rolodex of, you know, how certain things give other things texture or space or sound, or whatever the case might be.
Right.
And you know, it was one time I threw the voice of God just on a bass line, on a live bass line. And the way it just gave it this body, the way it just like it gave me everything I needed to do without doing nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You just literally throw it on like a bass or a kick or you know, a vocal.
Right.
And you know, I just fell in love with it from there, you know, and yeah, it's just been kind of something that's been my go-to for a long time now.
Yeah, I don't see it going anywhere. I don't see it going anywhere for you because every time I've seen you put it on, it's like what I always it throws me off because it's like it's not even like it gets louder.
Right.
It just feels like it gets like more intelligible and more just like
better.
wumpy. Like I can't explain it, but it does something. And then I seen you using the tape head, which is why we had that in there a lot. I see you using the tape head a lot. And I'm guessing, are you using the tape head for like saturation on the kick? Yeah,
saturation, aggression. Yeah.
Got you. Just to give the kick some more like top pop, like
anything really. Like I would just percussion. I'll do drums. There was a time where I was using the tape head like on background vocals.
Oh, okay.
To kind of give it like a little lo-fi grittiness, like, you know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
You know, but then I'll throw it like, randomly. I'll throw it like on a reverb chain, right?
Right.
You know, to give that a little more like presence, right, in the mix.
Interesting. So you throw it on you would throw the tape head like a saturation on a reverb
I would throw it on
chain?
anything that I want to give like some grit to.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? So like, you know, with me and verbs and things like that, like I do a lot of like spatial shit with verbs and things like that, and I like to get it a little bit more. You know, when you think about a verb in my world, when I think about a verb, it's like a pillow that like is over the vocal. It's like it's covering a vocal, right?
Right.
I try to have that be as present as possible, if that makes sense, like sitting on top of the vocal.
Gotcha.
You know, again, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I understand for the most part.
Right.
For sure, the people watching this, if you got this far, I think you might understand a thing or two.
100%.
For sure.
So, but it goes back to the concept of like just trying shit. Like, you know,
Right.
I'll put like, you know, I'll do anything on anything. You know?
Right,
And it's
right.
what makes it, what feels good, what makes, like, it's not a fucking, like, it's not computer science, right? It's what feels good. You know, there's no rules.
Right.
Yeah.
And with the reverb and stuff like that, which I want to know, what's your reverb that you're using right now? Like, what's a favorite reverb of yours right now?
Valhalla, I love the Valhalla verb.
Which year?
The vintage verb. Now I used, what's the orange one?
The 70s.
The 70s, yeah.
I was good. That's what I wanted to know.
The
That
orange one.
Don't know why.
It does something. I mean, shit. I love that one.
Percentage is fire.
But what else is there verb wise? Yeah.
Waves.
I've been
verb.
Waves verb?
Yeah, you think so?
You think so? You think so?
It's cool.
Shit, cool. Like, that's all right.
Shit, all right.
And one thing, as far as your reverb and stuff like that is concerned, is there any processing you're doing to the reverb and stuff like that? Like, it's because you mentioned your reverb chain, so I'm really interested in that. Like, is there anything that you're doing to your reverb chain in particular?
Yeah, I'll put like a Kramer tape on there. Kramer tape with like a delay. The delay in the Kramer tape is legendary.
Within the Kramer tape.
Within the Kramer tape. Do a lot of like imaging. I'll do like S1 imager on it, depending if I'm trying to get the vocal to sit more on top of the mix or just inside of it.
Gotcha.
You know, I'll do a lot of panning of the verb or of the delay, just any effect, right? Like with me and effects, is like I like shit to sound dreamy. Like, you know, in my way of mixing, like mine, I want you to experience the mix. I want shit to pop out the speakers. I want things to, you know, to kind of. I want you to feel the mix, you know. I want you to experience it, right?
Right.
That makes
You know,
sense.
and that, a lot of the times when I'm using verb, like again, I'm using it for separation also, and using it for depth.
Right.
You know.
How are you liking Spatial in that regard then? Like this new frontier Spatial and just like mixing and stuff like that. How you liking it so far?
I mean, I'm doing less work of achieving clarity. Right?
With space, because you have so much
You have
space.
so much space.
Right.
You know, you're able to get that depth and clarity that I'm looking for.
Right.
I still feel like we're in the early phases of it, you know, when it comes to mixing like in Dolby Atmos, because, you know, there's still, all the tools are still not really available yet, right?
Right.
You know, you have like a limited amount of tools that you can use.
Right.
You know, but, you know, for the most part, you know, it has tons of potential, right? I always equate to the time of spatial audio currently from like, when it went from mono to stereo, right? Going back from like 69 to all that was before that was mono.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's funny when you go back and listen to like Abbey Road when it was remixed in stereo, right? And you're now hearing the hi-hats and snares mixed all the way to the left. I speak about that a lot too. They were experimenting.
Right.
You know, and I feel like we're in that phase now with Dolby Atmos spatial audio.
Right. That's a great way to equate it, because I remember I would listen to like old Ray Charles records, and when they were first discovering stereo,
They
dude,
was doing whatever.
you would have a vocal, his vocal would be in the right speaker, and then all the music would be in the left.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
Wild.
It was wild,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it's like going back and listening to it, it's like, oh, okay.
Wow.
I look at that like, yo, because I'm sure that, you know, the Abbey Roads and, you know, they were mixed in mono first. They they were experimenting. Like, yo,
Right.
I have all this stereo field now. Like, let me try some shit.
Right. From when Spatial first started, like I would say the last year NAMM, when we was in them Dolby Atmos rooms, was just listening.
Right.
Compared to this year's NAMM, it was just like, oh, y'all playing with it now.
Now it's becoming
Again, it's more access. You know,
Right.
it's more access. I mean, even with the engineers platform, we certify engineers in the format.
Appreciate that, by the way.
You know, but it's it's gonna be there, right? As soon as like the community gets their hands on it, which is happening now, right? We have more and more engineers enabled in Dolby Atmos every day.
Right.
Those are going to be the ones that are going to be breaking it and creating those techniques and the processes and just the styles of mixing. Really, once more artists, I know artists, producers are doing it, but once people are creating fully like in Atmos from jump, right? I think that's when like the capability will really be exposed.
I've been seeing a lot of. Have you been seeing like the 3D synths? So it's
nah.
it's like these new synths engines that they're making that are built, and as soon as you play it, it's in Atmos.
Really?
It's like
So like the verb and everything, which is
everything.
what's it called?
It's 3D. If you type in 3D synths, that's like the new like kind of like genre of synths. You've been seeing it, like you've been seeing it. Oh, it's been coming up a little bit. I've been seeing it. I've been noticing it.
Incredible.
Yeah, but I'm trying to figure it out because I just feel like when it comes to Spatial and when it comes to Dolby Atmos, I feel like it just has to slowly. It's getting cheaper and cheaper. It's for us,
course.
like for a home person at home to get into
right.
it. I remember we went and Sonos did a display, and Sonos had like. It was weird. They had like this like 4-speaker setup, but like one was shooting to the roof, and it was hitting the whole room correctly and stuff like that. So I feel like over time, I actually feel like this is actually going to work because a lot of people were skeptical like about it. I'll be honest. Like we were all like, no one's going to use this. But when I look at cars, I'm like, duh, this is perfect for cars. Like as far as being able to have like everything, and then just seeing everyone just massively adopt this. Like when I seen it on your platform teaching it, I'm gonna take this class, but like I'm gonna physically take this class.
100%. I mean, it's about enablement, right?
Right.
It's like I feel like for the first time ever, there's more content that needs to be worked on in this format than there are enabled engineers able to work on it, right? And so providing the education to be able to get enabled, and then us being able to have deals where we're bringing Atmos projects to these engineers.
Right.
Again, it's just growing their businesses, but it's being able to have engineer. There was for so long, right before technology was really a thing. When I was coming up, it was always like keeping people like me out of the room in the conversation.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was like. Whether it was me not having money to go to music schools to officially learn what I need to learn. Right. So it's like now it's like, we wanted to provide that access. We might spark the next Dr. Dre through, these educational experiences. Or so on. So it's like, instead of pushing everybody away, like, I'd rather give everybody, you know what I'm saying? And now, like, my legacy can live to them now. Right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I forgot who the legend from USC teacher. He's helping you.
Brian
with
Malouf.
Yes,
yeah,
Brian.
He's a complete legend. Yeah. Crazy story. Shout out to Brian Malouf, man. Incredible human being. Bro.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just a super great guy. But funny story is I got connected through him through one of our graphic designers, Mo, which Mo was in his course at USC. But then when I got connected with him, we invited him by the studio, and crazy story is the room that we're in, he built that room in 79 when it opened.
79? He built that room.
He built that room with his own hands.
Right.
So how that came about full circle.
Is wild.
So Can-Am, when you go back in Can-Am Studios, like Brian, he's the one that built the room.
Right. Wow. I know he was like, hey, I built this room.
I was wigging out. He came with a photo. He came with a photo of them. I was like, it was one of those moments like, nah.
No way.
Right. Nah. You know what I'm saying? Like just so just being able to connect with him, and now he's helping educate the engineers in Dolby Atmos.
Which I thought was so dope. I like the space that we're starting to create. Before we get out of here, I like the space that we're starting to create just amongst like all these platforms. Like I see yours, with Dolby Atmos. I see like the mastering.coms, like kind of niching to people, like as far as like, hey, like if you want to learn this, like we'll kind of like it's an easier way because I come from there was no YouTube, there was no anything. Like I just had to literally either I was going to email you 1,000 times until you answered me and beg you just to come and just work for you, or I was gonna go to like some school and pay a lot of money. You know what I mean? And I didn't have, the trade-off. We both went to audio school, so we know the vibes. You know what I'm saying? So, I just want to say, man, I really appreciate what you're doing. I feel like this is just the beginning for you. Just as far as like what you're starting to create and what you're doing. I want to say you have an amazing team. I love your team to death.
Absolutely,
I mean, they're here now. I was happy to see them when I seen them walk through the door. Shout out to them when I seen them.
I was about to say, can I shout like them out real quick? Like
Do
the
you
whole, the
think?
whole entire squad?
I'm sure it's okay.
I just want to let y'all know, like, NAMM 2023 was like the most amazing and streamlined experience for us because Ali and his team are by far, and all offense intended to any other crew I've worked with, they are the best and most professional team I've ever worked with.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Can I tell you something?
incredible, man.
What?
I
Tell me
appreciate
something.
that.
Yeah,
For
y'all
sure,
got my
for
favorite
sure.
shirt right now. I ain't gonna lie.
Facts.
No, that shit is hard,
Aight.
fire.
Aight, bring it up. Because
Fire.
I ain't want to, because I ain't gonna lie, because I had it on. Like, I generally had it on, like coming the other day, like, I had it on, and I was like, nah, that's whack. I ain't gonna be like,
Is
I
it
don't wanna
that
be
guy?
like, oh, come on,
It's
bro.
the
Like,
sound dealers or the music
it's
sound
the
like
engineers.
the
Your
blue
music
joint.
sounds
Sound
like
like
shit.
shit.
My
Yeah,
mom was
shit.
like, your music sounds like shit. Like, I was like, what you talking about? And I was like,
we gotta get you the sound dealers.
Oh yeah, I love those. Yeah, yeah.
Sound
Please,
dealers.
please. I love what y'all merch. Like just the brand,
It
just
looks
like
good,
what y'all do
yeah.
is
The
great. And we
posters
love the
and
shirt,
shit,
like the
yeah.
texture shirt. We big on that. Like we like, oh, this is a good shirt.
It's
Like,
hard.
Like Dan, you know, Dan comes from fashion. Like before,
Yeah.
you know, him being involved with engineers and all that.
Right.
Like, he comes from the fashion background.
Right.
You know, Dan is the person that helped get all my business affairs in order.
Got you.
You know what I'm saying? So there would be no engineers if it wasn't no Dan. You know.
got you,
what's
got you.
You know, but nah, just with what you guys are doing, I've been a fan since day one, right? You know, there's not too many people that can express this industry the way you guys are, right?
Right. Thanks. Thank you.
And it's I'm grateful to be able to be in network with you guys.
Yeah, man. And we
that
appreciate
means
you
a
just
lot.
being here. Like, it means a lot to us, but I know it's going to mean a lot to, like, the community that's
for
watching
sure.
us do. Like, it's going to mean so much because I think a lot of people see people like us and in this industry, and it's hard for them to give us a shot in a sense of taking us serious. But I just feel like our community that we're creating is growing so strong that it's becoming something that's undeniable as far as a voice, as far as being, hey, we're like this. Like, this is how we really are. Like,
just being
and
heard.
shout out to, like, the people that have come before. Shout out to the Pensados places. Like, without those places, this wouldn't exist, you know, because I didn't think it was possible. Like, when we would see you on Pensado Place and stuff, like, I was like, yo, yes, interview these guys. I'm talking to someone that technically knows how to speak to you, you know? Like, I could sit here and ask you 1,000 times, so what was your life like, blah, blah. But deep down, as an engineer, when I'm watching, I'm like, fam, ask him about that snare, bro. Like, you know, like, that's what it is. So I appreciate you so much for just making the time just to come and sit with us. This means a lot. This is a really big deal to us, you know, thank you for just letting us be a part of your journey and just what you got going on and supporting us and sticking to your word. I just want to let everybody know you really stuck to your word with everything that you told us, and I really, really appreciate that.
Come on, man. Come on. I appreciate that. And just real quick, speaking on what you last said, on anybody that look like us or anybody that has an idea, man, stick to that. You know, for anybody that's watching, you know, I'm no different from anybody. You know, I'm no different from you. I'm no different from, a CEO at the Fortune 500 company. You know, I come off the streets to be able to now, have a tech platform that's being massively adopted by thousands and thousands of people and growing.
Right.
Continue to feed your inner dreamer. There's nothing that you can't do.
Right. And on that note, we getting out of here. I'm not gonna let you destroy this and say something crazy.
Yeah.
Are you good? You got anything? You got anything to add?
As an FL engineer, how would the onboard?
Get out of here, man.
I don't this bullshit. This has been the My Audio Nerds podcast, the podcast for audio nerds like yourself. Please make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. Also, make sure you rate us on Apple and Spotify. If you give this episode nothing but 5 stars, you're a madman.
Get your songs mixed on engineers.
That's a fact. Make sure you get your songs
Go
mixed
check
on
out the Engineers platform. Please do.
Please.
Show these people some incredible love.
Hey, it's serious. They even had me on the wait list for a while. I'm not gonna lie, I had to wait for my ticket. So they are serious about curation. So I appreciate that. And again, just want to thank Ali for being here. Clap it up for Ali one time. Appreciate y'all. And until next time, you guys.